2.3 Graphs of equations of lines. Rewriting from standard form to slope-intercept form. Why not just graph from standard form? What are the benefits to graphing from slope-intercept form? What do I have to do to get there? And what are the most common mistakes people make? So why not just always graph from standard form, right? Standard form, we've got ax plus by equals c. Well, it depends on the relationships between a and b and c, whether it makes sense. Because remember, if we graph from standard form, it's going to be using the intercepts. So if I have this equation, we could do it. We could get the y-intercept, which would be 8/5. I'd be perfectly happy graphing from that, but I have a slight feeling some of you would not be. X-intercept, just as ugly. So you can graph from that, but remember, slope-intercept form has the benefit that if I give it to you, I really hope, based on what your slope is and what your y-intercept is, you have a pretty good mental picture. If my slope is 3, I know it's going to be a line that looks kind of like that. If my slope is -2, I know it's going to be a line that looks almost as steep, hopefully straighter than that, almost as steep, steeper than -1, but it's going down instead of up. If I have a slope of +1/4, it's going to go very flat in a rising direction. So then it's just a matter of where it's situated on the coordinate plane, and so the y-intercept tells me that. So that's why I like slope-intercept form a little bit better. So how do we get from one to the other? To get it in slope-intercept form, it's just solve for y. So if I have this, how do I solve for y? Every time it's going to be the same 2 steps. Subtract the x term, add it if it's negative, but it's very rarely negative. That's one of those things, standard form a is usually positive, not always. And this is why I've been kind of picky, trying to get you in the habit of putting the x term first and then the y term. Remember, this minus travels with the 2x, so that's why the 2x is negative. This 8 up here is positive. Nothing tells you otherwise, so that's why it's a +8. And oh, I wish I took a picture of the sign I put up in my classroom to remind you, you have to divide all the things when you divide. When you multiply or divide, you have to do all the terms. You can't skip any of them. So we have -2 divided by -4 is +1/2. +8 divided by -4 is -2. And again, that's something several of you have been struggling with, and it's just, I think you're just going fast. If you know you have an issue messing up those signs, go back and do a double check. Negative divided by negative is positive. Positive divided by negative is negative. Okay, good. So every time it's going to be those same 2 steps. Move the x term, which is usually going to be subtraction. And then divide by the coefficient of y. And so you heard me say what the 2 biggest mistakes are, and I've seen you guys doing this for a while. I'm not going to show more examples because you can go back to the 1.4 video and do that. But the 2 biggest mistakes I see are, what do we say? Remember to divide all the terms. And the other one is, that's an awful star. The other one is, watch your signs. Okay, and I could add, make sure you have them in the right order, but since we've been talking about slope-intercept form, I bet that's not as big of an issue. So, recap. Why not just graph from standard form? Well, you get those ugly fractions, and again, we talked about you get that mental picture when you're in slope-intercept form. It's just much easier to deal with. Much easier to make sure you're, have a double check that you're right. What benefits are there for graphing? Hopefully you have that slope picture in your head. You know if you're right more easily. What steps do I go through to rewrite it? We looked at those and we talked about the big red common mistakes there.